Part 1. The letter. I was never the kind of man to chase ghosts. Not the kind that haunt attics or whisper behind wallpaper. But I've come to understand that there are other kinds, quieter, subtler. The ones that wait for you in photographs you never took. In places that don't belong on any map. My name is Marcus Gray. I was a private investigator back in the 1980s. Worked out of a two-room office above a pawn shop in Chicago. Most of my jobs were boring: cheating husbands, petty insurance scams, missing dogs. But in the fall of '87, I got a letter that would take me somewhere I never came back from. Not really. It arrived on a Thursday. No return address. Just my name handwritten, in a sharp, clean cursive that looked oddly rehearsed. Inside, a single sheet of yellowed paper, folded twice. Mr. Gray, if you are reading this, it means I still believe you are a man of discretion. My son, Timothy, vanished in the fall of 1958, near the ruins of Bower Hollow, a town that no longer exists. I have reason to believe the house is still there. Please help me find him. Yours, Mrs. Eleanor Caldwell. There was no phone number. No address. Just a P.O. box in a place I'd never heard of, Devlin County, Michigan. Now, I should have tossed the letter. Should have chalked it up to an old woman's delusion. But something about the name Bower Hollow stuck with me. Like I'd heard it before, though I knew I hadn't. It sounded wrong. Hollow. Not a place, but a wound. A gap in the land. I drove out that weekend. Just packed my coat, my .38 revolver, and a half-empty bottle of whiskey. Figured I'd do what I always did, ask around, snoop a bit, write up a polite "I'm sorry, but your son is dead" letter, and be done with it. I had no idea I was driving straight into the mouth of something that did not want to be found. Part 2. Devlin County. It took 6 hours to get there. The roads grew narrower the deeper I went. Trees stood taller, branches laced like fingers above me. By the time I saw the wooden sign that read "Welcome to Devlin County EST 1849, the sky had already turned the color of dried blood. Devlin wasn't a town so much as a scattering of buildings. A post office. A gas station. A diner where nobody looked up when I walked in. I sat down, ordered coffee. The waitress, pale, maybe 20, bags under her eyes, poured it without speaking. I asked, casually, "You ever hear of a place called Bower Hollow?" The room went still. Nobody turned, but the silence was immediate, precise. As if someone had hit mute on the world. The waitress didn't meet my eyes. She just shook her head, slowly. "No one goes there," she whispered. "I didn't ask if they go there," I said, keeping my voice light. "I asked if they'd heard of it." She stared at the counter. Her hand trembled slightly as she poured more coffee. "It sank," she said finally. "Long time ago. Nothing left." Outside, the wind had picked up. I filled my tank and drove to the library. It was one of those old civic buildings with a domed roof and dead ivy climbing the stone walls. The librarian was an old man with milky eyes. Smelled like Vicks and pipe smoke. "Bower Hollow," he said when I asked. "Humph, shouldn't be asking about that." "Why not?" He leaned back in his chair, folded his hands. Because that's not a place anymore. It was condemned. Whole valley flooded in '59 for a reservoir project. Government work. Army Corps of Engineers. And the reservoir never filled. That got my attention. He nodded slowly. The valley's there. The dam's there. But the water never came. They say the earth rejected it. Couldn't hold it. Cracked and drained. Anyone live out that way? He shook his head. No one who should. That night, I stayed at a roadside motel called the Pine Rest. The sign flickered in and out like a dying star. My room smelled of bleach and mildew. But I didn't sleep. I kept looking at the letter, turning it over in my hands like it was hiding a second message. Something just beneath the surface. And maybe it was. At 3:17 a.m., I had a dream, or maybe not a dream. I was standing on a hill, looking down into a valley swallowed in fog. At the center, a house. Old, 2 stories, slanted roof, pale wood rotted black at the edges. No road led to it, yet I knew I had to reach it. Behind me, something whispered. He's still in there. I turned. No one. When I woke, my hands were cold and wet, as if I'd been standing in dew-soaked grass. Part 3: The Valley. At dawn, I drove north along a gravel path the librarian had marked on a paper map. The road twisted like a snake, climbed over hills, dipped through broken woods. Then I saw it, the dam. Massive, concrete, and useless. Beyond it, nothing but a sunken hollow overgrown with wild grass and dark trees. A dead valley. But it wasn't empty. In the distance, tucked against the curve of a hill, I saw something impossible. A house. Exactly like in my dream. I parked the car, grabbed my flashlight and revolver, and began the descent. Part 4: The House in the Hollow. The descent into the hollow wasn't a walk, it was a crawl. Trees pressed in like they wanted to push me back. The ground was soft, spongy underfoot, reeking of rot and wet leaves. It hadn't rained in weeks, but the soil clung to my boots like fresh mud. Every few steps, I heard things. Cracks. Footsteps that didn't belong to me. A woman crying, far off, or maybe just the wind. The deeper I went, the less I trusted my own senses. But I kept moving. The house was still there, half shrouded by trees. It looked wrong. Not just old though it was, that but wrong, like a photograph out of focus. The lines of it shifted if I stared too long. The roof sagged to one side. Windows stared like black, empty sockets. No birds. No squirrels. Not even flies. I should have turned back. Instead, I stepped onto the porch. The wood groaned beneath my weight, but it held. I reached for the door. It was already open. Inside, the air was colder. Stale. Thick with dust and mildew, and something sweeter like lilacs, rotted in the sun. The hallway was narrow. Wallpaper peeled in long, curling strips. Pictures lined the walls, all turned face down. On a table near the stairs, I saw something that made my skin crawl. A photo of me. Taken from behind, I was standing at the gas station in Devlin, talking to the attendant. It hadn't happened more than 24 hours ago. I turned it over. On the back, 2 words, in the same handwriting as the letter. "You're late." Part 5 echoes. Every instinct I had screamed leave. But I didn't. Maybe I was too far gone. Maybe curiosity had already poisoned my veins. Or maybe something in the house had already chosen me. I moved deeper. The kitchen looked untouched by time. Dishes in the sink. A child's drawing pinned to the fridge. A calendar on the wall, stuck in October 1958. I opened the fridge. Empty. Then I heard it. Footsteps upstairs. Soft, deliberate, slow. I drew my revolver, aimed at the ceiling, and climbed. Each step groaned. Some gave slightly under my weight. At the top, a hallway stretched in both directions. Doors lined either side. The third door on the right creaked open on its own. Inside, a boy's room. Dust-covered toys. A small bed with sheets half pulled. A baseball glove on the floor. A photograph on the nightstand. I picked it up. It was the same boy I'd seen in the newspaper clipping the librarian had shown me, Timothy Caldwell, age 11. Missing since October 1958. In the photo, he was smiling. But behind that smile, something in his eyes looked afraid. Behind me, a whisper. "Mr. Gray." I spun. No one there. Just the hallway. The doors. And the growing sense that I was no longer alone. Part 6 Timothy. I spent what felt like hours searching the house. Found old journals, half-burnt books, drawers full of children's toys untouched by time. I kept hearing footsteps just ahead or just behind. Whispers. My name, spoken softly, like someone testing it on their tongue. But no sign of Timothy. No body. No bones. No child hiding in the walls. Then I found the basement door. It was locked with an iron latch. The air around it felt different. Colder. Still. I kicked it in. The stairs were stone, slick with moss. A bare bulb flickered overhead, swinging slightly though there was no breeze. At the bottom, the room opened wide. Dirt floor. Brick walls. And in the center a chair. Strapped to it, head down, was a man. At least, he had once been. His skin was gray, stretched too thin. His mouth hung open in a frozen scream. His eyes, wide and dry, stared at something that wasn't there. Etched into the wall behind him were the words, "I never left." Then, behind me, a voice small, trembling. "He tried to stay. But it won't let you go." I turned. A boy stood in the corner, barefoot, pale, dressed in old-fashioned clothes. Timothy. But older than he should be. He looked up at me. "Are you real?" he asked. My throat dried. "I should be asking you that." He didn't smile. "It knows your name now," he whispered. "You shouldn't have come." Part 7 The Hollow remembers. Timothy wasn't quite right. His skin had a transparency to it, like sunlight through thin curtains. He spoke in a low, echoing cadence, like someone half underwater. I asked him what had happened. He said, "The house called to us. Mama and I. After Daddy died, she heard voices. Said they were promises. I tried to run, but she made me stay. And then, I don't remember." He turned away, pointed to the far wall. There was a door I hadn't seen. A narrow wooden thing, carved with symbols, circles, crosses, something like an eye. "What's through there?" I asked. Timothy looked up at me. "Not a door. A mouth." Before I could respond, the room shifted. Literally. The walls rippled, like heat haze. The chair in the center splintered and collapsed. And I heard something breathe behind the door. A slow, wet inhalation. Then, gray. I didn't wait. I ran. Part 8: Escape. I don't remember climbing the stairs. I remember crashing through the front door, scraping my hands on the porch, falling to the wet grass and crawling through mud. My revolver was gone. My flashlight too. Behind me, the house made no sound. But I knew it was awake. The trees bent inward as I fled the valley. The light dimmed, though it was only afternoon. I reached the car, flung myself inside, started the engine. Nothing. Dead. I screamed, slammed the steering wheel, tried again. Still nothing. Then the radio crackled. Through static, a voice I knew too well. "You're late." I grabbed the keys, threw open the door, and ran. Part 9: What follows you? I made it back to Devlin on foot, long after sunset. Mud-caked, bleeding, eyes wide. No one helped. No one asked. They just watched from behind drawn curtains. I stumbled into the diner. The waitress was still there, wiping down the counter like nothing had changed. I told her what I'd seen, what I'd heard. Her face didn't move. Then she said, "It called you. That's how it starts." I left that night. Found a truck driver willing to take me south. Didn't sleep. Didn't speak. Just watched the trees and waited for the whisper. It came 3 days later. In a motel in Ohio, at 3:17 a.m. Same dream. Same house. This time, the boy said nothing. This time, he just stared. And pointed behind me. I turned. And saw myself. Standing in the hallway. Holding the letter. Smiling. Part 10: The Archive. I left Ohio the next morning, feeling hunted by something I couldn't name. My body was with me, but parts of my mind were still in that house. Or worse, something from that house was now with me. I drove through 3 states without stopping. Ate when I remembered. Slept only when my body collapsed. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that same hallway, that same house, but twisted deeper like it had roots that reached into dreams. By the time I made it to New Orleans, I wasn't looking for rest. I was looking for answers. A contact, an old war buddy turned researcher, worked at a private archive beneath Tulane. He owed me for saving his leg in Kandahar. If anyone knew how to find the history behind that place, it was him. His name was David Lang. I showed up at his door unannounced. He looked like hell, bags under his eyes, chain smoking, beard wild. Like he hadn't slept in weeks. When I told him about the house, he went pale. Not shocked. Afraid. "You shouldn't say those things out loud," he whispered. "Why?" He didn't answer at first. Then he turned, walked into his cluttered den, and came back with a file. It was thick. Yellowed. Marked with a black symbol I'd seen carved into that basement door, an eye inside a jagged spiral. "You're not the first," he said. "That hollow in Kentucky? It's not a place. It's a wound. A rupture. There are others like it. Different faces. Different names. Same scent of rot." He dropped the file on the table. Inside were dozens of reports. Newspaper clippings. Journal entries from people across decades. A coal miner in 1923 who claimed his daughter vanished inside the mines only to return 6 years later, unchanged. A preacher in 1962 who built a church in the hollow, then nailed his own tongue to the pulpit. A government survey team from 1987, all 6 members vanished without trace, except one, found 2 months later in a Chicago subway, blind and repeating a single word, "Listen." Each one referenced the house. It changed shape. Sometimes it was a cabin. Sometimes a manor. Once, it was an abandoned hospital. But always it waited. Lang leaned forward. "There are places in this world that don't follow rules. We thought geography was fixed. That's the first lie. Some places drift. Shift. They grow hungry. And if you hear them..." He tapped the file. "They hear you back." Part 11, The Whisper Network. The deeper Lang and I dug, the more disturbing it became. There was no clear pattern, but there were threads, long, tangled, overlapping. Names. Symbols. Places. And most chilling of all, audio recordings. Lang had found them on a forgotten FBI server years ago, locked behind 4 layers of clearance. He had to spoof 3 credentials and lie to a federal contractor to get them. There were 17 in total. Each labeled by date and location. Each less than 5 minutes. We played the first one. October 3, 1974. Pine Barrens, New Jersey. A man's voice. Raspy. Breathing hard. It opened again. Same smell. Same door. But different layout. No matter how I run, I end up back in the kitchen. There's a voice in the fridge. Sounds like my mother. But she's been dead since '63. Then silence. Followed by something else. A wet sound. Like meat dragging across linoleum. Then whispering. Not English. Not any language I recognized. But my name was in there. Gray. Gray, it's time. I stopped the tape. Lang looked at me, trembling. "I never told you what was on them," he said. "Not once." "You heard your name." I nodded. He didn't say anything for a long time. Just walked over to the window, pulled the curtain back, and stared into the night. "Do you feel it now?" he asked. "Like something standing just behind you?" I did. And I lied when I said no. Part 12 Echo Chamber. Lang didn't sleep that night. Neither did I. We buried ourselves in documents, tracing every known appearance of the house or things like it through history. The oldest reference came from 1452, a monk's confession written in Latin, preserved in the Vatican's secret archive. Lang had a copy, smuggled through a contact in Milan. It described a valley that sings. When the moon is black and the sky does not blink, the ground weeps and the air calls to the lonely. A door opens. Not made by man. Not made for man. And those who pass through may leave behind skin, but not shadow. The monk had gouged his own eyes out 5 days later. Lang was trembling. I saw it building in him, that same sickness I'd felt. The house didn't just visit you. It marked you. Crawled into your bones. Whispered in the frequency of thought. Then, Lang froze. He pulled out one last file from a locked drawer. It was marked Classified Arcady Protocol. Inside, blueprints. Not of the house. Of a device. A structure. Circular. Electromagnetic. Experimental. Lang said it had been built by a fringe DARPA team in the 90s trying to map trans-dimensional frequencies using reverse-engineered designs recovered from occult sources, a mad fusion of physics and mysticism. It had failed. Or maybe it hadn't. The location of the prototype? Northern Kentucky. Mason Hollow. Exactly where I'd been. Part 13 Voices below. We agreed on one thing: we needed to go back. Not to the house, not yet. But to the field site. The prototype. If it was still there, maybe we could find a way to understand what this thing was or close it for good. The journey back was like crossing into fever. Everything felt too vivid. Too silent. Roads seemed longer. The woods, denser. My thoughts weren't my own half the time. I'd see flashes in the mirror. Hear footsteps when we stopped for gas. By the time we reached the overgrown site, Lang looked like a ghost. The facility was buried under 2 decades of neglect. A rusted gate. Crumbling concrete. Barbed wire sagging with ivy. No guards. No signs. But the air was humming. A low vibration. Below human hearing. But you could feel it in your teeth. We breached the door with bolt cutters. Inside, darkness. But not silence. The deeper we went, the clearer it became, a low, rhythmic chant. Mechanical. Repeating. We found the main chamber. And saw it. The machine. Still humming. Still on. Coils. Antennas. A central platform of obsidian stone, etched with the same spiral-eyed symbol. Around it, dozens of screens, all showing static. Except one. It showed the house. But not from the outside. From the inside. And in the frame, a boy. Staring into the lens. Timothy. And behind him, me. Smiling.